Here are the distortions, along with karma replacement thoughts. Learn these distortions well so that under pressure you can readily catch yourself using them and then quickly replace them with calmer, more functional thoughts. Flaw fixation. Zooming in on what is wrong or what went wrong, ignoring the positive aspects. All I can think about is my screw up. How can I enjoy this day when I messed up? Look at what you did wrong. Instead, try thinking more functionally. I won't allow a negative element to overshadow all of the good fortune around me. Ask yourself, is it really the negative element that is ruining things for me, or my choice to dwell on it? What could I focus on that I enjoy? What would I see if I were having a better day? What isn't wrong? Dismissing the positive. Negating the positives that might otherwise lift your mood and self-esteem. For example, saying, oh, anyone could have done that. It's no big deal. Rather than, I did a good job under the circumstances. Instead of, yes, but I could have done better. Say thanks and think, yes, I really do deserve some credit for juggling so many demands, getting all those difficult tasks done, working hard and getting some things right. See which approach motivates you more. Assuming or jumping to conclusions without testing the evidence. There are two types of assuming. Mind reading. Instead of thinking, I know he's angry at me, simply ask. Check it out with the other person. Think to yourself, maybe it isn't so. I won't know until I ask. Maybe there's another possibility. Fortune telling. Rather than predicting extremes that you won't enjoy the party or that you'll do poorly, expect the middle ground. Think to yourself, I won't know for sure until I experiment. I'll probably have some success and enjoyment as opposed to none. I might even surprise myself. If you tell yourself that things will never get better, try thinking they might. Labeling. Giving yourself another name or label, as though a single word could describe a complex person completely. Always and in every case, I am a dud or he is a loser. Instead, rate behavior, not the person. He is driving poorly or behaving. Remind yourself that no one is always anything. No one is ever always dumb, rude, inept, and so forth. And the person is probably already suffering from their own faults. Ask yourself why someone's faults should bother you, or why you should punish the person further by applying a label. Apply the same standard to yourself. Overgeneralizing. Concluding that your negative experience applies to all situations. I always flop, or I never succeed, or everybody hates me, or nobody loves me, or nowhere is safe. Nothing means anything. When you draw conclusions like this, challenge yourself with questions. What is the evidence that I never do well and always do poorly? What's the evidence that all people fit this negative profile? Use the words like sometimes, often, generally, usually, and yet I haven't mastered this yet. Test the notion that you never do well. Experiment and see how well you do. Your performance is likely to be somewhere between 0 and 100. All or nothing thinking. Evaluating yourself or others with extremes. Allowing for no middle ground. I'm a hero or a loser. I'm on top or a flop. Instead, rate performance or behavior, not people. I only batted .300 today. My performance wasn't so hot. A baby has worth, even though he or she doesn't perform well. Ask yourself, why must I bat 1,000? Accept the fact that those who don't win gold medals are not worthless, simply human. In fact, it has found that athletes who aim for an excellent job perform better than those who shoot for perfection. Remember that all people have both strengths and weaknesses at the same time, yet they still have worth. Enjoy the satisfaction of knowing you did your best, even if the outcome falls short of perfection. Unfavorable comparison. Magnifying another's strengths and your weaknesses, while minimizing your strengths and another's weaknesses. Bill is brilliant. I'm just average. Sure, he has a drinking problem and lots of people like me. But he's the one who really gets things done. To counter this distortion, don't compare yourself with others. Allow that each person is different and contributes in unique ways according to unique strengths. The contribution of a frontline soldier, a nurse, or a homemaker is no less valuable than that of a commander, doctor, or CEO. It is only different. Catastrophizing. Making things much worse than they really are. This is awful and horrible. It couldn't be worse. I can't stand this. Instead, you might think things really could be much worse. And I can bear this even if I don't like the inconvenience. If I choose to face the difficulty of this challenge instead of avoiding it, I'll probably figure out a way to deal with it. To counter catastrophizing, ask yourself questions. What are the odds of this awful thing happening? If it does happen, how likely is it to do me in? How well am I preparing for coping with this situation? Remind yourself that you're probably coping somewhere in the middle, not at 0. Emotional logic. Believing your feelings prove that things are as bad as they seem. I feel too inadequate or bad or tired to move. Therefore, I must be inadequate, incapable, unlovable, or a loser, and so on. Remember that emotions are signals of upset, not statements of fact. Acknowledge the feelings and remind yourself that feelings change. Think to yourself, isn't it interesting that I'm experiencing this strong emotion? Don't go ballistic. It might change with rest, exercise, time, or experience. If you feel worthless or bad, try to put a number to the reality. For example, asking yourself, what would 100% worthless or bad be? Helps you avoid all or nothing thinking. Should statements, making rigid, unchallenged demands of ourselves and the world. He should know better. He must not behave that way. I ought not to tire, be imperfect, get depressed, or be afraid, or be stressed about this. Challenge this type of thinking. At least some of the problem is my expectation that the world agree with my perfectionistic expectations. People really are just the way they should be, given their beliefs, distortions, experience, and upbringing, and it's foolish to demand that they be otherwise. It would be nice if they were different, and maybe I could help influence them to change. In fact, maybe I would motivate myself more effectively if I used more woulds, coulds, and want tos. I would like to improve, and I want to rather than I should. Personalizing. Seeing yourself as more responsible or involved than you really are. It's all my fault that my son is failing in school. This guy is trying to irritate me. Distinguish influences from causes. Look realistically for influences outside of yourself. Instead of thinking, what's wrong with me, try thinking, the test was hard, or I didn't prepare inadequately, and I was tired from working overtime. In other words, focus on behavior and externals without judging yourself. Also, try to depersonalize. Maybe I'm not the central figure of another person's drama today. Blaming. Putting all responsibility on externals, which makes us feel helpless. This job is ruining my life and turning me cynical. I'm the way I am because of my crummy childhood. Acknowledge outside influences, but take responsibility for your own welfare. Okay, I understand how these things have influenced me. Now I commit to get back on track and move on. Or nothing makes me do anything. I choose how I respond. Did you notice any distortions that you frequently use? Were there any you've heard your family members use? Perhaps you could circle those distortions above that you commonly use or heard growing up. Identify and replace drill. The first column in the following table lists thoughts that might go through your mind. As an exercise, cover up the second and third columns to see if you can first identify the distortion in the thought and why it's problematic, and then replace the original thought with a calm thought. The third column lists only some calm thoughts. There might be others. Working alone or with a partner. See if you can discover more options that might be useful under pressure. Thought. My worth equals my wages. If I don't earn a certain amount, my worth is in question. It's awful to be mediocre. I'm invincible. A mistake means I'm inept. Nobody can relate to what I've been through. God won't forgive me for what I've did or done. The first one seems to be all or nothing thinking. This can lead to excessive overtime, which strains the family, or materialism, which is linked to depression. And a calmer thought for that would be, my worth as a person is innate and independent of my salary. It's awful to be mediocre. It seems to be catastrophizing. This can lead to fear-driven anxiety and perfectionism. And a calmer thought would be, half of all spouses, parents, cops, soldiers, and brain surgeons are below average. I'll be the best I can and not worry about keeping score. I'm invincible seems to be labeling, albeit a positive one. What happens when you realize you're not invincible? I'm a vulnerable, fallible human and still capable of very good work. A mistake means I'm inept seems to be all or nothing thinking. It's impossible to live without making mistakes or upsetting people. And a calmer thought would be, a mistake makes me human, just like the people I admire most. I'll do my best and not to get too attached to the outcome. I'll try not to get too attached to the outcome. Nobody can relate to what I've been through. Seems to be overgeneralizing. This isolates us and keeps us from allowing others to support us. A calmer thought would be, some people might understand, others might try, and perhaps support me imperfectly. God won't forgive me for what I've done. It seems to be like mind reading, which can lead to hopelessness. And where was that written? And there's more.